Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup, where we look back on a weekend packed with thrilling motorsport from all over the world. From an absolutely brilliant Grand Prix in Azerbaijan to Toyota crashing out the WEC at home in Japan. Not very good for the fans. IndyCar NXT champions crowned on a 200 miles an hour 1.3 bowl in Nashville, and a dramatic last lap pass for NASCAR victory at Watkins Glen. Contact between teammates fighting for the win on Australian Supercars. We see that everywhere nowadays. And bikes falling like skittles as British Superbikes entertain the crowd at Oulton Park. First up in the news, I think we should go straight to the Grand Prix. That's what people are here for. They're here for the money, and it was an amazing Grand Prix in Baku.
Oh, one of the best races I've seen for decades, probably. I don't know. I mean, just, we'll get to the end of the race day. We'll go through qualifying and practice. But yeah, when the 3 and then it became 4, Sianz was catching, and it was just proper racing. I know DRS was involved, but I'm now liking that.
Well,
they've got. That's what I've said. They finally got. It's so close. I think if the wind had been the other way, there would have been a drive-by. That's the problem. That the effectiveness of DRS can be affected by which way the wind's blowing. So it's very hard for unless they have a sort of 2 different settings for 2 different winds. But that was just right DRS. So it didn't look like any drive-bys. But I mean, it began with the beginning, with the in free practice, the 2 rookies in, Colapinto in the wall. And I bet old Logan Sargent was back home laughing. You see, there you go. You kicked me out for crashing, and you got this new flipping Argentinian boy with no wins in Formula 2 or 3. And,
Did you see what Hamilton said about Colapinto? He couldn't even remember his name, which I'm really shocked about. I'm really, there must be some laundry there or something, because he's a bright guy. He's going to know
I didn't notice that. But poor old Logan wasn't laughing by the end of the weekend, that's for sure. But amazing. The Colapinto story, it still surprised me.
It surprised me as well. We've spoken about him for so long that he hasn't really on paper achieved anything, really. I mean, of course, comparatively in recent years, but fair play to him.
Well, we just had another Formula 3 champion crowned without winning a race at all, not even a reverse grid race. So winning's not everything, although stats normally say it is. And of course, you had Ollie Behrman standing in for a banned K-Mag, naughty boy, 12 points. And he suddenly burst his completely, everything's been so smooth in his transition. And there he is in the wall. Well, it was the first lap of FP3, wasn't it, when he's gone out for a qualifying test. So Ollie's finally proved he's not perfect. He can make errors. But also, when you say the rookies both hit the wall, but so did Charles Leclerc. I love Baku. One punter on Twitter wrote in saying the drivers don't like it, but I'd never heard that myself. Have you got any impression that the drivers don't like Baku?
Well, I'll tell you who likes qualifying, Charles Leclerc, because he's qualified pole position 4 years in a row, which is just outstanding.
I think it's a great street circuit. Yeah. I think it's lots of places to overtake. People were diving up the inside, maybe not Formula 1 as much as Formula 2, but there's a section when they're going downhill, so it's fast, left, right, down the hill towards that really tricky turn 40 where Leclerc crashed. A sensational speed down that hill, between wall to wall to wall. I think it's a great challenge. But of course, the big thing then of Q1 was Lando out. We're all talking about
after all these team orders, and Lando is going to give way.
He's going to now that Lando's going to get helped, he'll win the drivers' championship. A bit hard for Oscar to help him from the front row to the back row almost. So. I saw he mucked up his first lap, and then he had a yellow flag on his. That's always a risk when they all go out late, isn't it? If you get a red flag or a yellow flag at the end of the session, you're not going to get a lap time in. So he went out along with the Salmers and Ocon, who's having a miserable time at Alpine, and Ricciardo, who's probably going to be the one that leaves RB. I'm pretty sure Lawson will take Ricciardo's place at the end of the year. 2 Salmers, of course, with Valtteri still thinking he's going to get re-signed for next year. I'm gonna be in it. But this Gabriel Bortoleto seems to be the big name in the potential Audi Sauber book for next year. He's an Alonso protege. And of course, he's a reigning Formula 3 champion. And after the race we'll talk about in a minute, he's now leading the F2 Championship. And of course, if he wins the Formula 2 Championship, he's not allowed to race in Formula 2 next year. So he'll join all the others that sit watching a screen in the garage for a year, doing the simulator work.
I forgot they're forcing not. Wow.
So you think, do I want to win it? Unless you sign me as a Grand Prix driver next year.
Of course you want to win it. Of course you do. And you'll take that chance, wouldn't you?
But in Q2, Ollie got his mojo working fine and out-qualified Hulk in Q2 for 11th. Just missed out on getting the top 10. Hulkenberg 14th. They joined Yuki, Gasly and Stroll, not going any further.
That's a strong message, isn't it? Being out-qualified by a rookie. And he, of course, went on to beat him in the race as well. But that's a very strong message.
And then someone called Franco Collar, what's his name, Lewis? What's his name? A sixth in the top 10 in Q2. Sixth. Albon 10th. Teammate 10th. I mean,
incredible.
It's just, And then in Q3, couldn't really do any better. Colapinto ended up 9th on the grid, and Albon had more trouble with his fan in his airbox and panic in the paddock. But Franco Colapinto hasn't got a drive next year. Maybe Sauber Audi should be looking at Colapinto. Of course, the Sauber Audi, and poor old Teo Pourchaire, who won the championship. I think he won. No, he didn't win the championship. He's second in it. Anyway, the reserve driver, he's getting more and more kicked out the backyard. So Leclerc was on another pole from Oscar. Sainz was third, so Ferrari good. Perez was fourth, out qualifying someone called Max Verstappen in the same car.
I believe that's the first time all year.
Well, it must be, I'm
probably
sure.
The first time all decade.
And then Lewis, who only qualified 9th miserable weekend, he decided to have some new engine parts, and so took a pit lane start. But
there's a lot of conspiracy. Sorry, Tiff. There's a lot of conspiracy about Lewis and his engine and the team, and now they're using him as a bit of a test mule for all these things they want to do next year. But they're not going to throw anything away. They want to win every single race, but there is a lot of conspiracy.
George is never happy, is he? George always ends up saying, "I've got no grip, nothing, it's terrible," and then he qualified as well. He qualified 5th.
I like the calm and
qualified 5th between the two Red Bulls. Yeah. And then the car seems to get better in the race, although he wasn't particularly quick in the race, but he was there or thereabouts. So then we had this race, and it looked a bit early on, all the gaps were 1.52, and it looked a bit processional for a while as when the tyres are equal and they can't follow too closely around all those corners because they're worried about, wearing out their tyres. In fact, Ollie Behrman at the end of the race said that, he just took the first stint too slow. Because I think in free practice, they all said the tyres were going off, the yellow tyres. So he almost says, I took it too easy. That's the trouble. You don't know how far, they don't really know, which is why they all end up sort of cruising around a second or two apart early on. But then boy, did it all boil up as the race progressed.
But on the tyres, they all blame the tyres. But I was at Pirelli headquarters last week. And the things that they're doing, they know exactly what they're being told what to do with the tyre. So when they're saying all the Pirelli tyre, the degradation and this and the other, they're being told. And all this F1 technology goes into the road cars. Inevitably, they were showing me how this then transfers to the real product in the tyres that you and I get on our road cars. But it's not Pirelli. It's they're being
I know they've been told to design
exactly.
it. I know that's what drives me mad. I think someone on Twitter just brought up again that year when the British Grand Prix, when they had 4 tyres exploding, Lewis, I think, and Pirelli.
But they were told.
But also they were told what pressure's minimum, they weren't obeying it, and they were told not to reverse them. And they were actually putting the tyres on the wrong way round. And that's when the sidewalls. But anyway, poor old Pirelli get beat. But the drivers still don't know. Sometimes the track temperature changes, the degradation comes quicker. I think it was a bit hotter on race day. But we ended up with this race hotting up with Leclerc thinking he was going to cruise away. And then Oscar's closing in. And then Perez is closing in. And then Lando at the pit stop after, because Perez tried to undercut Oscar, didn't he? And then luckily they had Lando recovering, just happened to be on track, just in front of Perez at exactly the right time. So we had Lando doing a bit of a K-Mag, the old K-Mag back him up for your teammate trick, which definitely helps. I think Perez would have undercut Oscar if he'd had a clean lap and Lando hadn't been in the way. But then, so then Oscar goes out, he's finishing second. He's got his engineer saying, okay, Oscar, now, okay, now chill out a bit now. The tyres might grain a bit, and he's going, forget that, mate. I'm going to win this damn race. And lunges Leclerc to take the lead. I mean, this kid Lando must be going home.
He's the real deal.
Going to sleep thinking, we might have a championship-winning car next year. I mean, on the odds at the moment, they'll have how often does a Grand Prix driver get that moment when his car can win the championship? And it's going to be those two kids fighting, to be the one that takes advantage of a quick McLaren next year.
He's the real deal. He's super composed.
Unbelievable.
And he's got his mojo now. He's properly got his mojo. That was such a mature drive yesterday from him. Very
almost arrogant, almost super self-belief, and so young and so calm. And the overtaking manoeuvre, he didn't care about Lando at Monza. He just wanted to go outtake him. He didn't care about his engineers saying, don't attack Leclerc. I'll drive my own race.
Which I find, I don't know, you should listen to your engineers, but as a racer driver, you want to win as well. But I think he scored pretty much more points than anyone since Miami. I think he must be there.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, he's certainly two Grand Prix wins. One was gifted, in fairness, Oscar. But that was his proper win yesterday. The real deal.
But also Leclerc hanging on. I mean, that was the other surprising thing. Because I can't follow, my tires will go off.
Yes.
But no, Leclerc just every lap, he didn't sort of back off. They all say he's had an easy lap now because now he's going to recharge his batteries, then he'll push all his buttons and then he'll overtake you. No, he didn't. And that one shot, which people have kindly put up on Twitter because I requested a photo at least.
Amazing.
The two Grand Prix cars on opposite lock with black marks coming out.
Proper big
fabulous
number.
I think Oscar looks like he was almost tobogganing on top of the curb. I think the outside wheel was almost off the ground, and then Leclerc. It's like Oscar comes into the shot sideways, and you're marveling at that. Then all of a sudden, behind him, Leclerc arrives already on opposite lock, and it was. And so many attempts to overtake down the straight, he couldn't make it. And then Carlos, of course, catching up and making it 4. Brought us into this amazing last lap when it all kicked off big time. And I don't know why Carlos tried to almost do Leclerc. He slowed him, having done Checo, and it was just racing. And I'm glad the stewards didn't get involved, and they've let them the crash. I mean, it was. The only thing I would say is that Checo was in a better position to avoid the accident. But they were both just intimidating each other. That's what you do. It's exactly. Senna way. You move.
Exactly right.
But the only thing is because Checo could have moved more left. He had a car's width on his left. But Carlos, who couldn't probably completely see Checo, he was actually following Leclerc because Leclerc had moved left on that straight. So he was actually sort of following the tracks of Leclerc, who's by now on the left-hand side of the track to get a bit of a tow. And Checo was just going to the straight line in the middle of the track. And he said, no, I'm not giving way. I'm not giving way. And Carlos said,
do you know whose fault it was?
Nobody's.
No, I'll tell you, it was definitely someone's fault. If you're a Checo fan, it was Carlos's fault. If you're a Carlos fan, you're right. It's nobody's fault. Checo could have moved, but...
Checo was in a better position to avoid it happening.
Yeah.
But then behind, of course, the thing that didn't get shown live on television, I had to wait right through all the checkered flags and almost had to see what's his name talking rubbish with his notebook. That all of a sudden Behrman had a point, and Behrman was saying because Behrman was held off Lewis for a while. They were chasing. They were chasing Colapinto and Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the results came up, and it was Lewis, Behrman, Hulkenberg. But we hadn't seen that happen on the last lap. We thought, how on earth did that happen? But they didn't show it straight. I wish they'd showed it earlier because I was thinking, what on earth happened? But it was actually Hulk's fault because after the accident, they all went through the debris at that point. So I mean, Hulkenberg was just thinking it's going to be a red flag, it's going to be a safety car. And he sort of backed out a bit. But instead of getting to a safety car board, went to a green flag, race again. So Lewis, the old wise Lewis, was on to this. So pounced Hulkenberg, and then little Ollie said, well, I'll have a bit of that as well. So Ollie Behrman got the 10th place, and Lewis got the 9th. And meanwhile, Albon and Colapinto were 7th and 8th in their Williams.
Incredible. I hope Williams continue this vein because Albon's a class act as well. There was a little bit of controversy because Perez apparently, allegedly got out and hit Carlos's helmet, but that wasn't.
Oh, did he?
It was just
handbags.
Controversy also with the McLaren rear wing. When it hasn't got DRS, they're saying that the airflow is slightly better over that and everything else, but that's a technicality. That's
it's what Red Bull won all those races years ago, because they designed this bending wing.
Absolutely.
You can if you they layer the carbon fiber threads in a certain, they literally architecture the wings is so they want it to move at a certain loads, but it still passes the official static load test.
Yeah.
We have the anonymous George Russell suddenly inherited a podium.
I know, from nowhere.
Thanks, boys. I'll have a podium then.
He deserved that. He's had some bad luck last few races.
Yeah. Fernando was anonymous. Instead of Fernando Alonso, he was Fernando Anonymous, and he was in sixth, but we never really saw anything of him.
But we got Newey coming to Aston Martin, so he's no longer to be anonymous, and Newey's happy to be working with Fernando. He never mentioned Lance Stroll once. He was all about Fernando.
Oh, that could be the biggest backfire in the world. There's no guarantee that Adrian's going to get it right yet again and again and again. And so obviously, the trouble is Adrian now has had so many protégés that he's taught, in the Red Bull team and the McLaren teams, so many people have worked with him over the last 20 or 30 years, seeing how the maestro draws his pencil lines. That it might not be as easy.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it's not as if he's been sandbagging all this time just in case he gets some shares and a big salary from another team. So and that's the important word, team, because there's so many people. It's not just one person, however talented he is. It's all about the team. What did you think of Harry Benjamin? His
good commentary. Yeah. He scream when everyone hit each other. He was, he raised the volume. I think he's a great commentator. He's good.
Me too.
But it's just that spectacle of three cars from different manufacturers fighting for the lead for lap after lap. It was just really enjoyable to watch. That was amazing defence there by Leclerc to stop Perez getting by, and that was amazing late break down the inside on his knackered tyres. To hold off. But I
thought the defence from Piastri was equally as good. Actually, I thought he was exceptional with his defence. Really parked his car quite wide.
Yeah. So a great Grand Prix, and Oscar Piastri, a real star. So that was Formula 2 the day before.
Who's going to win next year, Lando or Oscar? Where are the team orders going?
Oh, I know. The great papaya. They've put this papaya rules in. They're going to be back to people are going to be there'll be cartoons about the papaya rules.
But seriously, what will happen? Because if Lando's going to almost certainly finish ahead of him this year, because they've already announced that Lando will take priority. So then going into next year, does that make Lando number one driver? Because
it'll all start in who's first on the grid. Is Australia? Where do they start next year? They haven't always started.
Bahrain,
of course.
Which has just been announced that they're going to be doing the testing there in February as well.
So it'll be who qualifies first, who leads that race, who gets the most points in round one, round two. They'll probably let them play for about 4 or 5 rounds, and then whoever's got a bit of a lead, they're going to have to bring driver rules. I'm sorry. I know
there's a lot of it going to be. I mean, you're going to have Charles and Lewis as well.
Well, the Red Bull will be better, I'm sure. It was interesting to check out at the end. He did a sort of tongue-in-cheek sort of Max is behind. Just shows with a Red Bull how you have a small change in the setup and it's undrivable. I know that because I've had the small change. I presume he'll still be there next year. It depends on another couple of races. We'll see. The Formula 2 boys managed to litter carbon fibre around most of Baku. They were bashing wheels and having a lot of fun. We had 3 Formula 2 debutants because the F3 Championship's over now. Gabriele Mini took over Behrman's place in Prema.
I kept laughing when they kept saying Mini Mini, Eeny Meeny Miny Mo.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, Mini Miny.
Christian Mansell, that Australian kid, I think he was third in the championship.
Yeah,
fourth in F3. He was out for Roman Stanek, who's run out of money. He's doing the rest of the year, 3 races with 2 more to go. And then we had the unfortunate Zach O'Sullivan losing his Williams Academy drive because he's run out of money, basically. But then we had Luke Browning, the Formula 3 Williams Academy driver, taking his place. And he did a great job. All 3 of the F3 boys did a really good job.
They really did.
They qualified 5th for Mini, 10th for Mansell, 11th for Browning, which is a shame for Browning because it'll be 11th. You have to start 11th in both races, whereas Mansell had a pole position for the reverse grid, but he couldn't make good use of it and fell backwards. And Joshua Dirksen won the sprint race from, 4th on the grid. The Paraguayan Paraguayan German driver who's been sort of in the mix this year, but
His
he
first
hasn't
time,
run a
yeah.
single-seater race for years, I don't think.
Do you know how many different winners they've had this year in F2?
15, I heard them say.
Yeah, incredible.
That's all the sprint races. If you reverse the grids, that's what happens. The main race, a huge crash at the start, where they penalised, it's Cush Miney, not Mini, for stalling, for not respecting start procedures or something. A bit harsh to
No,
them, but
you got Miney and Mini.
I know you
Mini
have.
and Miney, yeah.
But it was Miney that stalled.
Yes.
And today he's been penalised and grid positions dropped for the next round for not following start procedures. I don't know what he did to stall, because you can stall those hand clutchy things.
Yeah.
It was a huge shunt, though, flipping out. I don't know who was flying over the top of who at the end, but it was a massive shunt. Anyway, who came through that? Oh, yeah, the poleman, Dutch driver Richard Verschoor won that from pole position, and I think he won Monaco. He won another race earlier this year. Be holding off Kimi Antonelli, because Kimi was, of course, still doing Formula 2, was second, with the Prema car going a bit better. Meany finished 8th, Mansell 10th, and Luke 11th. But Luke was battling away, banging wheels with, he was really holding his own. Isaac Hadjar, of course, was the big story of the weekend, championship leader, got no points in the last round. I can't remember why. Qualified way down the grid and got no points again, which has meant that this Brazilian sensation, Bortoleto, who finished 4th, picked up enough points to get ahead of Hadjar in the championship. With 2 rounds to go, 19-year-old Bortoleto. So the battle between the two, Bortoleto or Hadjar for the championship.
No, I'm not going to say it. I got a preference out of those two. If you're a regular listener, you will know. So you got Luke Mansell, got Scott Mansell, who's also a good racing driver, and obviously you got Nige, and then none of them are no relation whatsoever. Very famous racing.
Are you giving me Crofty style facts now, are you, or something, to get me excited?
No, just deflecting from the fact that I don't like Isaac Hadjar after his outburst on the radio. I don't like bad manners on radios.
What did he say? What upset you, though? Was that the last round?
I can't remember. He was rude to his team, and I'm sure it's just heat of the moment, and we've all been there. But it wasn't last round. It was several races ago.
Fittipaldi was on the radio, his team, in the main event, saying, "I need more information. Where am I? What did I do?" And the engineer said, "Well, just go faster and try to catch the car in front." But I'm not like that. Some drivers are like that. He was saying, "I need more information." I don't know what information you wanted, apart from the plus or minus on the board. But anyway, it sort of reflects how easy the cars to drive sometimes. Paddle shift, and that you're not so busy changing gear and using clutches and heeling and towing that you're able to have these conversations at high speed, asking what your problem is. So over to Japan, where the World Endurance Championship went, and Toyota's dreams of another championship were crashed away when Kamui Kobayashi took out the Porsche of Matt Campbell, both retired. And with the other system from Toyota already finishing 10th, Toyota can't win the championship anymore now, which is quite a surprise. They've had a bit of an odd year. But it was a good win for the Penske Porsche, who now lead the championship. Lawrence Van Tour, the Belgian, with Andre Lotterer, the German, and Kevin Estre, the Frenchman. And they've now got a 27-point lead over the highest placed Ferrari. But the last round in Bahrain is an 8-hour race, so it's 1.5 times the points. So you can have 38 for a win. So the Ferrari boys could overtake the Porsche if Porsche has a disaster and the Ferrari win. But also got actually in Fuji. It was nice to see BMW was second, their best result. Alpine were third, their best result. And Peugeot were fourth, which is their best result. So this balance of power that's a part of world endurance racing has helped some come forward, and maybe Toyota will think because they're the favourites, they've been sort of held back slightly. I'm sure they'd say that anyway. But spectacular stuff. I didn't look. I think Ferrari won the GT3s. I didn't look.
We got a couple of champions crowned in America, in Indycar and Indycar NXT.
Yep. Back from wherever we were, Baku to Japan, then over to America. Yeah, IndyCar came to its final round, the Nashville Oval, and it's a concrete track, so it's a frightening looking white track, and they rushed around at 200 miles an hour. It's 1 1/3 miles, which isn't much bigger than the sort of Mallory Park Oval if you don't get up to the hairpin. I think that's 1 mile, the Mallory Park Oval, if you cut out the loop up to the hairpin. And there was this kid, Norman Siegel, this guy that's bought his way into a McLaren drive, who had a few crashes, who didn't qualify Indy after crashing. But he was just flat out, well, not always flat out, and he went across a bump and he just lost control. He said, I hit the bump. Yeah, you saw this. But why did all the other cars not crash going over the same bump? It's weird, that, isn't it? You sort of, I mean, maybe his settings on his car.
It really seems to be quite forceful. The bumps seemed to be quite big, didn't it? When you see it.
It did, yeah. His front wheels had jumped off. So maybe his suspension's stiff, or maybe he's running a slightly different setup. But he virtually was a passenger, it went, and but I watched the previous race, which was a bit of a tighter track, wherever they were. And the amount of throttle modulation going on when they're not flat out is amazing. They're feeling for the grip at the front to, because it undersees a bit, then they have that bit more power. It's an amazing skill, those ovals, where people say you're just turning left at 200 miles an hour. But
what's the fastest oval you've driven on?
Well, probably the Millbrook Oval, when I broke the British speed record. But I've done Daytona, but I've done the sort of turns 1, 2, 3, 4, and then gone infield.
Was that racing, or was that
a racing 24-hour race? Because the first year I did the Daytona 24-hour race, there wasn't a bus stop on the back straight. So we literally came out of the infield onto turn 1, Speedway turn 1, stayed up to turn 2, down the back straight at 220 miles an hour, and into turn 3 in a flash, which took a while to get used to, I must remember. It did. But the championship decider was supposed to be an exciting decider, but it's all fallen apart the last 2 races. Because championship leader Alex Palou had an engine problem at the previous round, and Will Power was looking to take the championship. Then he spun on his own in that last round. So you think, well, Palou's going to win it easily, but then
say Palou.
I don't know. I change every time. Palou. But Palou only qualified 15th, and Power was 4th. So all of a sudden, okay, championship's open again. Maybe Power can sneak in at the last round. But not long into the first stint, poor old Will Power's seatbelt popped open. And it was a terrible pit stop with some poor hugely embarrassed mechanic leaning in. Because, of course, with the windscreen round, it's actually quite difficult to access the crutch belts and straps. And I think at first he tried to sort of just plug it. I think it might have been just one of the side ones that went. So he still had the top ones in and the bottom ones in. And I think it apparently happened again later in the race. There was actually a fault with the harness, they reckon. So he couldn't get it to go quickly. And then he had to undo the top belts, then put them all. Oh, it's the longest pit stop you've ever seen.
It takes a long time to do the belts because they're so tight.
I know.
You have to loosen them before you put them back on again.
Well, especially those IndyCar drivers, I bet 200 miles an hour. I mean, there's concrete walls all the way around you. But a safer barrier nowadays, which is an amazing invention. But you want your belts tight, that's for sure.
Ever heard any stories about Le Mans drivers not doing their belts, and back in the day when it would they have carried on, or they wouldn't have carried on? Everyone would have
no. You pit. Yeah. Well, if you've got 3 laps to go before you've got a scheduled stop, you might keep going. But if you've got a long stint to go, But it was amazing. I mean, there was battles throughout the field, just side by side at 200 miles. That terrifies me when I watch it. But towards the end of the race, when Pato O'Ward was leading and Colton Herta, who's never won an oval, amazing. I hadn't got that fact in my head. But they were just the whole 5 laps side by side, with just some 2 inches between your tyres, front and back, going around these ovals. And eventually they caught a back mark, a Stingray Rob. It was a bit like that thing at Spa. Was it Hakkinen overtook Schumacher or something by going the other side of the back marker up the hill? Do you remember that? It's all everyone makes a fuss. They don't make a huge fuss about it. But if you're second and the leader goes one side of the back marker, you go the other side. It's not rocket science. It's what you do. And if you come out the other side ahead, you've won it. Because I think Hakkinen had the inside line for the top of the hill by going the other side. But O'Ward took the high side of this back marker, so Herta went to the low. But the car, it was sort of head-on camera. He thought, oh, God, he's going to be going flying over the top of Stingray. He'll hit him, he'll catch wheels, and they'll fly. And anyway, so he got through, made the gap, and won the race to everyone's delight. He's finally won an oval race. And everyone likes Colton Herta. He's a very naturally talented driver, but sometimes maybe doesn't moves through enough, and maybe goes too hell for leather all the time, But there was loads of races going on. There were only 3 retirements of 27 cars in the end. The Swedes had a bad day. Both Rosenqvist and Ericsson clobbered the wall. I think Rosenqvist definitely had a tyre go down. I'm not sure what happened with Ericsson. And poor old Catherine Legg went out. She was trying to finish another oval. But again, that shows what ovals like, because it was another Fittipaldi, Pietro Fittipaldi, isn't it? Overtook her. And so she went to the middle of the 3 lanes, say. So he went inside, and so he pushed her out of lane 1. But then as soon as he got through, he went up in front of her into sort of lane 2, taking the natural because he'd gone quick to overtake. And then, of course, you've got no area on your car if the car pulls right in front of you. And then so she just understeers. Then if you get into the grey area, as they call it, lane 3, halfway through the race, is just full of tyre rubble. And then you can't do anything. Steering won't work, and you just slowly...
It must be the most awful feeling ever.
Oh, I'm going to hit the wall. Oh,
Yeah.
I am going to hit the wall. There's nothing I can do. I'm going to hit the wall. So that put her
hands
out,
off the wheel or
which is a
not?
shame.
Hands off at that.
You wait until the last. I mean, you still think your lock might
You
work.
always
still
think,
dream. But then when it gets to within a foot or two, hands off. So amazing spectacle, great spectacle, really, and a fantastic battle for the lead, which went and hurt us way. Indy NXT the day before, earlier that day, Louis Foster, who's just dominated that championship, had his 8th win for the Andretti team, got his $1 million sponsorship to help him buy an IndyCar drive.
Come on, Louis.
He has to get a drive. I mean, he's been so impressive. And unfortunately, Andretti haven't got his places, and a few teams there's lots of teams that are changing their franchises. Stuff goes on, but the Jamie Chadwick, she only started 7th because it went to it rained for qualifying, so they started
a minute. What do
the
you mean
championship
only
order.
started? She's still 7th. Is still.
I know, but she's qualified 2nd and 3rd.
I know she has. I know
on ovals, so she's had a good qualification, but she didn't really make much progress, and then got taken out by a back marker coming down on her when she was lapping her. Back marker came down, took her out. So her championship end, she had a bit of a year like that. Things have gone against her. She's been hit by people, had punctures. So she ended the points in 7th. So it's just a question whether she stays and does another year. I mean, she's got this IndyCar test coming up, but I'm sure nobody believes she's actually going to get an IndyCar ride.
Well, it'll be such a travesty to Louis Foster if she gets a drive and he doesn't.
Yeah, but if she's got $10 million and Louis got 1,
it shouldn't all be about that.
It is, isn't it? I mean, the point is there are no factory seats left. So there's no seats left where Alexander Rossi hasn't got a seat. Dropped by McLaren. So he's fishing around for a seat. A very experienced race winner. Hasn't won many races.
Don't get me wrong. I'm a massive Jamie Chadwick fan. I am, and as are you. But and if she gets it, I'll be super supportive. But Louis Foster, if it was a toss up between those two, you'd want to take the driver that's winning. Yeah,
Louis has to get it. Hopefully, Louis Foster, IndyCar. We need a Brit out there winning races. Well, Jack Harvey, I think, finished up 11th to 12th, but I don't think he's got a ride next year. But then up, I don't know where they were. Where's Nashville? Nashville's down in the middle. So up northeast to the Glen, Watkins Glen for the NASCAR. The Go Bowling at the Glen NASCAR race. I love sponsors. The Go Bowling at the Glen.
I would call this podcast Go Bowling Podcast if they get some money. We could upgrade our audio and everything.
It was chaos from the word go, to be honest. They don't have many of these road courses. They might have 2. They definitely have 2 road courses. A 3rd road course? Of course, the street course at Chicago they had. But it was chaos. People were just knocking. From the lap 1 onwards, it was chaos. Juan Pablo Montoya was out there having a one-off race out of the blue. I think he hasn't raced for a year in anything, I don't think. Qualified 34th of the 38 cars and finished 32nd. So not the most spectacular return for Montoya.
Was he in a competitive car?
I'm not sure which car he was in, but they're all there or thereabouts. Ross Chastain from pole position led the most laps from the front, set the pace. But the story was much about Shane Van Gisbergen, this Kiwi that's come over. He's done half in the second series, the Infinity Series, and half of the main NASCAR Cup race. I think he's doing the whole season of Cup next year. And of course, he's this road course expert that shows the Americans how to do it. But he was sort of always 3rd around the top 3. But every restart, he seemed to be on the inside of the second row. But he didn't push through, He was holding back, just staying there. But after many yellow flags and much carnage, there was a green-white checker. So 2 laps to the finish line after they'd run into overtime due to more crashes.
Is that what a green-white checker is it?
Yeah. You get a green. So once it's overtime, once you've done the set number of race distance. From then on, you just have green, white checkers. But they were going down to turn 1 at Watkins Glen. It's got this huge tarmac car park. They were going 5 or 6 wide and then coming back on. They could still make just about 3 could go up the hill to the S's, but that didn't work. Several occasions, the 3 made it 2 and didn't make it up to the top of the S's. It was chaos. That's NASCAR. But anyway, the very last lap, Chris Boucher, who isn't in the playoffs, so he wasn't going to win and go. In fact, nobody was sort of at the front that could have won this to go through to the last 12. But Boucher hasn't won all year. And he'd come from 24th on the grid to lead when it came to this final green, white checkers. And that's what you do in NASCAR, mate. 24th on the grid to end up leading. And this time, Shane Van Gis just sneaked up to his bumper again, real tappy poo going into turn 1, which is all part of NASCAR racing, which pushed Boucher just wide a bit. So Van Gisbergen went up the inside, went up the hill to the S's. He's won this race now. Shane's going to show them all. But Boucher didn't give up and chased him around for a lap and a half, then coming down the back straight into the bus stop, which has got a smaller curb this year, so it's almost easier to go really quick through it. But Van Gisbergen just sent it in. And it's where he's been quickest all weekend. But this time, he just grazed the armco, the inside, so the right-hand S. Just touched it, which maybe turned the car a bit more than he wanted to, which meant it into a left-handed bit of a tank slap, a big slide, lost all his momentum, went over the exit curb, trying to catch the car. And so Boucher then sneaked up his inside. He got his bumper inside Van Gisbergen's rear bumper, so pushed him, got the inside line for the carousel and took it to the finish to win. That's great. So, apparently Van Gisbergen's famous for how close he goes to walls, which on this occasion was a millimetre too close. Because apparently in Austria, he always takes his door mirrors off in qualifying and practice so he can learn when he's got near enough to the wall, because he wants to take his door mirrors off both sides.
Sounds like an absolute lunatic.
But he was laughing about it. It was amazing. It was a great finish. He was laughing about it after. He threw that one away.
Surprised they're not a bit more. You don't see a bit more Oppo and stuff. They're very planted because they look like they're just like a big old.
No, there was a lot of Oppo going on. There was a lot of Oppo going on.
Okay.
In fact, not so much nowadays. They used to have before the latest gen. This gen is less Oppo, but sometimes they're going around 160 mile an oval. So you can see them when the sun was coming in the front. You can see the Oppo going on, coming out of banking. But no, because Van Gisbergen tried to get back to him in the penultimate corner, and he was so sideways he nearly tank slapped off the road. So
I've had a few of those, Tiff.
We've all had a few of those. So that's there's just one round to go now. Bristol this week had a short track when the shootout will get shut from the top 16 down to the top 12. And currently outside on points are 3 champions. Denny Hamlin, who was in the barriers about twice at Watkins Glen, Brad Keselowski and Martin Truex Jr. So 3 former champions are looking to get the cut at Bristol. That will be mayhem.
What's, just off the top of your head, what's the approximately youngest and oldest driver in NASCAR? What's the age range? It's huge, isn't it?
No. A 19-year-old won the Infinity at Watkins Glen the day before. A rookie in his first ever NASCAR Infinity race won. There are some youngsters out there.
So mid-20s for the youngest? And
yeah, there's that, what's the kid's name? Tyler Rick's teammate. Oh, gosh. Why do I start stories? And there's a 19 or 20-year-old that's in the playoffs.
And oldest? 50?
Yeah, not in NASCAR top. I mean, they're 45 and things.
Okay.
They're still
a big old range, yeah. I guess not too dissimilar to Formula 1 at the moment with Lewis and Alonso and these youngsters coming in.
Yeah. So, yeah, spectacular bowling at the Glen. They were 10-pin bowling them. And Martin Truex was just moaning afterwards, they're just driving through you. I mean, it's pretty awful if you like proper racing. People were just driving through. Although they say that's the way they talk about pushing you off. It's the American way of saying it. Everyone's just driving through everybody. So there's a lot of people are unhappy. But if you like entertainment, it was entertaining.
Yeah, Aussie Supercars down under.
The final, our global tour. I don't watch the race. It was the Sandown 500. It's one of the 2 or 3 2-driver races. So championship leader Will Brown had Scott Pye with him, and championship running for the 2 teammates in the Red Bull Chevys had their Jamie Winkett was with Brock Feeney, and they finished first and second. despite taking each other off at one stage. I think one of them came out of the pits on new tyres and tried to hold off the other. But it was very much a bit of a Red Bull Chevy domination. They got 3 rounds still to go. The one splitting Brown and Feely in the championship was Chaz Mostert in his Mustang, but he could only manage 7th. So still plenty to play for down under in supercars.
Good stuff.
Back home.
British Superbikes.
Oulton Park. I do watch quite a bit of it on Sunday, apart from going to the Eastleigh Supercar show, which I enjoyed, and watching the Formula 1 Grand Prix. I've never seen so many riders because they have the other super stocks and the pro stocks and the super bikes and the rookie races. The rookie children were going down just all over the place. It was so slippy on the Sunday. It was dry on the Saturday when Kyle Ryde is he's the on-form bloke trying to catch Tommy Bridewell for the reigning championship Bridewell. And Ryde won the first race from Glenn Irwin's Ducati and Lee Jackson's Honda. Then I watched the second race live, and it was such a shame because Leon Haslam went to the front. They're all on different tyres. Some were all at the back on slicks, which didn't work. Some had intermediate front, wet rear, wet front. It was that sort of, will it rain more, will it rain less? And Leon Haslam, he hasn't won for about 4 years, I don't think. And he had a big lead, but they tracked him down. And down into the chicane on the last lap, Glenn Irwin came alongside Haslam under brake, and Haslam just snatched the front brake, and so had to come off the front brake. Some of the bikes, your front brake looks like locking. A lot of the fans apparently on Twitter were saying Irwin had put him off, but Haslam admitted that he just locked the front brake.
Is that Rocket Ron's son or nephew?
Yeah, Rocket Ron's son, his son, Leon, yeah. And the third race is another one run by Kyle Ryde, but the conditions got so bad that they actually red flagged that in the middle and had to have a 5-lap finish, 5-lap run to the finish. It was a shame because Storm Stacey, that's a proper name, isn't it? You might remember early, one of those headlines I wrote for. You remember Storm Stacey, Storms Snetterton Superbikes? I made one of those brilliant illiterate titles for you. But he had a 19-second lead. I think he had a wet on the front and intermediate on the back. But they were going down like skittles again. And someone dropped it under braking for the chicane at the back down the hill and came back on the track, put mud all over the circuit. And a few more riders then came down and fell on the mud. So they red flagged it and they had a restart with Stacey obviously on pole position, but now with his advantage completely gone. And Kyle Ryde won that one as well from Tommy Bridewell, the 2 championship leaders. And Storm Stacey still was delighted to be third on the podium with his Kawasaki. So it's all going on then. Bridewell, 2 rounds to go.
So they must have those special bike against the arm code, those pad things where they crash into them. Yeah,
there's a word for it. Tectocell.
They've saved a lot of lives, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't think there were any. I didn't see any riders that didn't stand up and walk away. You see the kids; they're so distraught. The juniors, the talent cups, they're all arms waving and leaning over barriers and despair that they've been taken out. Because quite often, rider goes, you can't go anywhere. If someone goes down in front of you, you just fall off as well. Yeah. But a lot of it, for those that braved the weather up at Oulton Park, would have had a great day's spectating, as long as they got right clothing on for the conditions.
Right. We're done with motorsport. I've got a question for you. I watched the Grand Tour over the weekend. I thought you were bloody on it. You weren't on it. You told me you were going to be on it.
I'm on the highlights, so I might not be on the highlights.
Highlights? You might not even be on that by the time you edit it all.
Next year, there's a highlight show with the 3 amigos talking back, looking at the past shows, and I'm sort of in the background. But whether I'm cut onto the cutting room floor, I have no idea. I think I was invited up there just to have a drink with the boys, to be honest. It's always a pleasure to meet the boys.
Did you watch the Grand Tour?
I haven't seen it yet. I intend to watch it.
We'll discuss it one week when you've watched it.
And while I'm watching it, also on Amazon Prime, is On the Road, made by Lovecars. So don't forget to go on Amazon Prime and watch On the Road, because we might still get that 3rd series commissioned, which is nearly there. Just needs more people to watch, love, click, do. On the Road.
On the Road.
Amazon Prime.
Anything else? What's coming up next week?
Singapore. So off we go, Formula 1, which is another. Perez won, isn't he? Won at Singapore. He won at Singapore. It's another circuit where Checo goes quite well. Formula 1 Academy, the ladies are down there as well. Enjoy. That's a nice gig, isn't it?
Oh, that is a
free drive.
Same thing.
There are a few young Formula 3 drivers with like a free trip to Singapore to drive a single seat around. A big bike weekend in Italy because the MotoGP are back at
Misano.
Misano. Well, because the Kazakhstan got cancelled. So this replaces that round.
So get this, last weekend when I was there, they had to take everything down in the paddock, all these huge motorhomes, these massive
Why? What for?
because they had another event this weekend, a cycling event or something. I mean, but they didn't know that it was going to be back there because, like you said, it was cancelled.
So there's a World Superbike race also, a track called Cremona, which I'd never heard of. It's down, it's up north near Milan, up in the centre of Italy, whereas Misano's down on the coast, isn't it, on the right-hand side. Near,
it's not down. It's not down. It's on the same level as Milan. It's just across.
No.
I was bloody there last week. I drove there, and then I drove back past Milan. Don't argue me. Look afterwards. It's virtually parallel with Milan. It's not. It's down a little bit, but it's virtually parallel.
No.
What else is up next week?
Of course, will Razgatlioglu be fit for that? He had this nasty injury where he's got air between his lung and his something, some sort of lung and spine thing. Hopefully, Razgatlioglu will be back. Just the NASCAR around Bristol. And then, of course, British Touring Cars, Silverstone, the place to be if you're in Britain this weekend. It's this championship hots up around the sort of bit of a short. I mean, you talk about NASCAR drivers hitting each other. Well, they'll be bumping and boring in BTCCCC.
Oh yeah,
I always say that around the Silverstone National Track, which I think isn't a track.
I don't like the National at all. And look,
it should go on the Grand Prix circuit.
Look, it's a straight line. See, it's a straight line.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now put it horizontally.
It's
yes,
a straight line.
Now, just
I've proven it right.
Okay.
See you next week. Thanks for joining.